Good morning, everyone. It is Triumph Tuesday. We got so much to chat about. But first off, good morning, everyone. This is Carol Sue, aka Naughty Boss, live with two sisters and a
Bro. Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Janis, aka Wellness Diva 5.0.
I am Frank Casella or Francis Casella. So that's me.
Yes, him. That's our big bro. So it's going to be an exciting time. We're going to get together later. Nothing better than family gathering, chatting, breaking bread, having fun, talking silly, goofy stuff, but also some serious stuff. But it is Triumph Tuesday, and this is the day where, we've come off of Monday mindset, getting our mindset ready for the week. But we also have challenges with that. And we're going to kind of pick our brain with our brother to see how he deals with it. But how do you triumph over the little derailments of life? Like, we're always faced with them, whether it has to be with, I got my mindset ready, I've got my planner, I've got all my to-do list, and all of a sudden, bam, you get a phone call, you get, a child home from school because they're sick and they just started and like, ooh, that's going to screw up my day. Or your boss just put on another project that you were planning, or damn it, you had something from the weekend that you ate that really is disrupting your gut health. And now you're derailing from whatever challenges that you already had in the book that you were going to tackle. And how do you triumph over those? So I'm going to give one answer that I do, and then we're going to kind of pass it around the fam and see what they come up with. But a lot of times what I say is I hit the pause button, because if we overthink what is derailing us, sometimes that's going to send us down the toilet. Who wants to be down the toilet, right? We want to have tools in our tool belt that are actually going to really enhance the way we're going to navigate through that triumph, through that period that we have to triumph over. So I usually hit the pause button and I rethink and I say, okay, well, I've got to rethink this. I've got to come up with another strategy. I've got to maybe juggle my calendar. Maybe I've got to switch a schedule. Maybe I've got to kind of go back to my journal and say, okay, what did I eat that really upset my gut health? Or was I just too darn lazy to do the fitness that I was supposed to do that day? So I put the pause button, and the first thing I say is I got to be accountable to me. And once I'm accountable to me, and we all want you out there to be accountable to yourselves, then you realize, okay, you know what? I got ownership in this. Maybe the derailment is really on me. Sometimes it's an outside force. A lot of times that is the truth. But I put the pause button, reevaluate, and then I renegotiate how I got to navigate. How about you, Jan? What do you do?
Well, I obviously do a number of different things, but I pretty much do the same thing. But then I kind of take myself out of the equation. And what I mean by that is if I'm usually if I cannot complete or I have a goal or a task on hand, that initial you feel a little frustrated. So I either, go for a walk, listen to some music, punch the bag, kick the bag, just something to take my mind off of it. And usually it takes a few minutes, and then I'm like, okay, let me see how I can get this done, or this certain thing, maybe it's going to take me a little longer. So let me see what moving parts I can move around, which is why, for instance, being organized is kind of paramount to anything that I do. So that's kind of how I go about it. How about you, Fran?
It's kind of ironic that we all do the similar type of a thing. But like when I get to a certain point, whatever project I'm working on, and there's a lot of stress involved, and I'm like, geez, for a moment, I got to take a step back. I got to reevaluate.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from, I like to build models and stuff like that, and there get stressful points. I said, or I'm working on a mechanical thing or something. And it gets to that point where you just can't figure out what the solution is. So you have problem, you have solution. So I started to realize that, I don't know, maybe it's hereditary, whatever, but there's solutioning in there. And there's solutioning can go in many different ways, and probably the most fantastic ways. I read a little bit about it. So I would just go to sleep at night, and then all of a sudden, like 4 o'clock in the morning, something when my mind is reprocessing the day or whatever, and it's looking at the problem from a different angle. And then all of a sudden I said, oh, well, why don't I just try this? So it's by trial and error, but through a lot of trial, error, failures, eventually you come to a solution that works for you, and you proceed on to that. you proceed
Yeah.
with life.
I absolutely love that because we, sometimes it does take us time to, you know, put that pause button on, because natural human nature is to react instantly, like, ooh, like, how did that happen? I was so planned. I had everything on point. But the truth of the matter is we're not in control. We talk about that all the time. The only thing, we're not in control of what's going on in our lives to a certain degree. We're not in control of what goes on in our community, our country, the outside world. But there are two things that we are in absolute control, is in how we react and
Yeah.
how we act.
Yeah.
So how we respond and how we are responsive. So, it could be, maybe it's a person that's aggravating you. Maybe, it's your boss, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your loved one, it's your kids. Maybe it's your boss. Who knows what it may be? Maybe it's just life. Maybe it's the darn news alerts we get all the time. These are all objects that could actually derail you. But finding techniques, finding great ways to pause that button, whether it's through music, through journaling, sometimes meditation. I've been really reintroduced to yoga, so I've been doing a little bit more stretching now, doing a lot of stretching since, I've done my PT for 2 months. So I found other ways to take my mind off of that specific thing. And then my mindset's back on point, which really helps. Don't you think, Jen?
Yeah, well, sometimes the unexpected are the events that lead us to where we're actually supposed to go. And sometimes that's kind of surprising. I can think of, some recent things that have happened. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So I did that differently. And wow, I can't believe this outcome. This is pretty good. So sometimes the best laid plans are the ones that are not planned. So I always try to keep that in mind, because I don't know, it keeps my mindset and engaged and looking at things differently, but in a more creative manner.
Yeah, when you mentioned yoga, now I don't always do yoga, but when I've done yoga is because there's been a lot of stress, or we have to perform or do something on stage, and and you're like, oh, geez, I call them the letter F's, failure, fall, that other word, So you get the point, and it's our brains, they do that, and then all of a sudden they get tight. And then one thing I learned from yoga is that we don't really rest enough, or rest our bodies enough, or rest our brains enough, because we're go, go, go. We have instant everything, the society is really changed, and, driving habits have really changed. So, and you're like,
For sure.
and they're, people are short tempered more, and, you're like, wow, and I remember, not to sign it sort of a tangent of the subject we're talking about, but a situation happened where I was the traveling manager with 3 ballet companies, and we performed recently in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and we performed downtown where most of the homeless live, and we had a stage set up there. But with that stage set up, there was a tree right behind where the stage was, so that was called upstage, and then there's an audience area, and there was 3 people, homeless people, that lived there. So I'm thinking, oh boy, I'm also Red Cross trained, and I looked at the situation and I said, oh boy, I don't want to really offend these people. This is their front porch, and we just happen to be there. We're going to do a performance, and we want to be safe, and we want the dancers to feel safe. So these guys, so they were curious, they said, well, what do you guys do? We're going to do a show here. I wasn't going to move them. I said, yeah, you're happy to stay right where you are. And they were like, oh, they're just kind of like, okay. So they're watching the whole process go on. While we were there, and it's a very challenging area to let me explain it that way. There was motorcycles racing up and down the street. There was one guy with a German helmet on a motorcycle doing wheelies. There was the Hispanics with their big, loudspeakers, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, oh my God, we had to do a show here. And then there was arguments on either of the corners where the homeless were, and they were just doing it's like their town debates going on. Anyway, a little bit of a shorter story was I was standing off stage, and one of the directors was, going through her dancers, And all of a sudden she called me and I turned and looked, and lo and behold, there was a guy that looked just like Jesus Christ. And he was walking up to us. He was very offended by the dancers. I'll say that so that helps the storyline a little
Right.
quicker. Sometimes I get a little too long-winded.
It's
But
all right.
so I'm thinking, how am I going to approach this guy? How am I going to not offend him? So I learned one thing about, Red Cross and being in shelters and stuff like that. People want to tell their story. So I said, I got to
Right.
figure out how I can interact with him without alarming him and, getting him to escalate the situation as opposed to, de-escalate and kind of slowly walk him back out of the area where he was becoming a possible threat to the dancers that were dancing on stage. So I said, I talked to him about it. He says, do they believe in Jesus Christ? I said, yes, they believe in Jesus Christ. So I don't like what they're doing. I think they're doing something really bad. And it's, do they believe in Muhammad? I said, oh yeah, yeah, of course they do. So, well, what about you? What do you do? I try to change it to let him talk a little bit more. And, in his story, whatever his story was, but he was a homeless individual. He'd been on the street. He was in the military, but something in his life changed where, this was his life. And, but and I was talking to Jan the other day, I said, the most important thing I took out of that situation, obviously it worked out very well, was that to listen to people's story,
Right.
because you never know who you're going to come across and what their story is, but everybody wants to tell their story. I think maybe because I'm older, I like to tell stories now. Anyway.
Well, what I will say about the music, I'm all about the Latin music. So you people,
Yeah.
you boom that box all you want. I love it. I love the.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love the dancing to it. I know a lot of people don't like loud music, but I absolutely love it. So kudos to them. But kudos to you that you were mindful enough to, let someone, tell their perspective. Because for some people, that is a scary situation. They don't know, they don't have the fortitude to kind of hands-on in the moment, renegotiate and triumph over a situation that could possibly, on uncertain territory where it may somebody feel vulnerable or scared or nervous. I think you did an awesome job. And that is a great way, a great example of triumphing over, a challenge that was, right in the moment, like you didn't plan on it. Nope. But yet at the same time, you did as much planning as you could, but you never know when these situations comes up. And I think, speaking of the homeless, I mean, those are the things I always say, no matter what triumphs we're going through in our own lives, always think of the less fortunate, always think of those that, we're not walking in their shoes. We don't know how they got there. And I think exactly, you hit the nail on the head. Let them tell their journey, let them tell their story. And you'd be surprised, you usually come out of that either a better knowledge of a situation and or more empathy and or ways of helping. And obviously your involvement with the Red Cross does a lot of that, and Jan and I commend you for doing that and partaking. And we encourage everybody to help the less fortunate. You have to do that. I mean, that's what humanity is all about, don't you think, Jan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we have our own very unique ways of helping our community, or even our virtual community, the people that we meet along the way and maybe need a little assistance with something. And for me, that's kind of what it's all about. And from there, that's where, excuse me, that's where things blossom and grow and become more creative. And I love being creative. I think I'm more creative now than I've ever been. So that's kind of cool. I love that.
And the fact is, you're never too old to try new things. Don't ever stop learning. Don't ever stop experiencing. Don't ever stop, taking that leap of faith that, what, it may not come out pretty, but you know what, I'm going for it. Age, just a number.
And it's self-motivation. It's like, when you wake up in the morning, you got to say, okay, I got certain things to do, and you got to keep your mind busy. You want to keep involved with projects. You want to do, fun projects or serious projects that you got to work through. And, that's life. So such is the life, but you don't want to sit in the corner, and just wither away. So you have to be productive somehow.
Exactly. And I actually did I shared a post today. It was not something that I wrote. I came across it, And it was so fitting for Triumph Tuesday. And we all do this. We're all guilty of this. Oh, I'll get to it later. I'll do it after. I'll call that person, oh, tomorrow. I'll go visit that person later. Oh, geez, I haven't talked to that family member, that friend for like a month. Oh, you know what? They're busy. I'm busy. You know, I'll get to it later. We have to stop living in I'll get to it later, because time is not ours. It's not promised. And I thought it was perfect for Triumph Tuesday.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, time is a precious commodity.
Absolutely.
Sure is.
You know, it's there's the old cliche, never put off, today what, what never put off tomorrow what you can do
Yeah,
today. And
exactly.
that's something that I always remind myself of, because it's easy to kind of take the lazy. I use the word lazy. I don't in the sense that sometimes I need a lazy moment because I need a brain decompression moment.
Right.
But I'm used to, like, when we do stage work and then you're setting up a stage, you only have a certain amount of time to get everything right so that the dancers come on and do their thing. And, you wind up like solving a lot of problems very quick. And so,
Right.
it's sort of a challenge in that regard, is like, there's the problem. Well, how do I solve it? And I only got 10 minutes to do it. It's like, so your mind process can do it. If you can let your mind go for a moment, all of a sudden you see the solution and you get to it, and then it's not a big deal. And also you try to not make things big deals.
Right, because I think when we get excited about something, and I think we've all been in that position where something has heightened to a point. So you kind of think back, okay, well, what was my part in that? And it goes back to for every action, there's a reaction. So I try to avoid that at all costs, take myself out of the equation, and kind of pause for reflection. Like, how would I respond? What would I do? How can I say something that I feel that I need to say, but maybe say it in a different way? That's more
it's diplomatic.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't work for all situations, but I use the diplomatic word, because sometimes if you have a worker or a coworker and you're trying to get them on board and teamwork and do something, you wouldn't say things like, well, because you did X, Y, and Z, this is why we're in a failure mode over here. That's very offensive, and it may be very direct, but it's not the right direct that you want to go. So you have to find ways that are going to say, well, look, you can use the word we a lot and say, well, we have a situation here, or the clients are complaining about this. So how are we going to go about it and make that work? Even though that individual may be the culprit or the employee, but you have to, it's trying to help them understand who they are, what they are, and they're a part of the process. And if they have a failure, well, we all fail,
Exactly. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And
Yep.
also I love, when you're trying to navigate triumph over a possible negative situation, or you're trying to avoid a catastrophe or a derailment, and especially where it's in conversation mode, always start out with a compliment, get to the nitty gritty in the middle, and then end, with a positive and a compliment to that person. And, do it in almost like a question form. Like, I always try to say something to the fact that, if I'm really trying to, motivate that person, but I also want them to be accountable, but you want to be very gentle with that person to not make them feel like they failed at something. Hey, I think it's a great plan for us to do A, Y, and Z. Don't you agree? How would you do it different? Hey, I would love your opinion.
That's right.
And really getting them engaged in that conversation. So it's twofold, because now they're thinking, okay, how can I do it better? But gosh, in addition, this person's asking for my opinion, or maybe what input that I could impact to change it. So I think, conversation has a great way of coming out with a great outcome when we're a little bit mindful of not, making that person feel less than and or defensive, but also keeping them accountable by putting it back in saying, hey, I want to be kept accountable. How could I do better at maybe communicating, or did I not give you the proper information? Because gosh, I'm a human. I could screw up too. So I think when you have those types of conversations, you actually naturally will find that you're all triumphing over a possible derailment. And I love that idea.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of something funny.
What were you
wow.
thinking?
It says nothing about nothing and something about maybe nothing, but there's your word salad.
There
But
you go.
I was thinking of that time, it was about 2 years ago before Poppy passed. And, we were talking about different stories and, all the shenanigans that the elders did, including Carol Sue. I don't include her with the elders, but, I think Carol Sue was the biggest shenanigan
Oh yeah,
kind of person.
she was the party girl.
So, Poppy said something like, well, what did you do? And I said, well, I was just being me. I was the quiet one.
The old saying, the quiet ones are a lot of times the one you have to watch out for.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Like you will always know where I'm coming from. There's
Right.
no doubt, doubt about that. I wear my heart on my sleeve.
Yeah.
I always will. But I am learning to renegotiate with communication skills, because I do want to be mindful of, how I'm impacting someone. And really when they I see what's going on there. For those of our listeners that cannot see what we're doing at the moment, our brother Fran has the canny ability, since we were children, to go behind and put bunny ears on the back of our heads, unbeknownst to us. So Janis just paid him the favor. I love it.
And that's what we're triumphing over.
Yeah. Always good stuff. Well, I think this is great. I think this might be something, a little segment that we might consider doing a little bit more often. It's always great to share our passion and extend it to our siblings to share their passion as well. It's fun. It's relevant. And as you can see, what we always talk about, you can be from the same mold, same family, but as what we all know, we are all unique. We are all different. We're all one of a kind. And that goes across the board for everyone. We're unique in how we look. We're unique in our gut health, our mindset. But the one thing that we have in common is being kind, humanity, and paying it forward to impact each other and find strategies that we all can help each other triumph over on this Triumph Tuesday. With that, this is Carol Sue, AKA Naughty Boss. We will see you tomorrow for Wellness Wednesday. But this is Carol Sue, Naughty Boss, two sisters, and a
brother. Yeah.
And this is Janis, AKA Wellness Diva 5.0. We will actually be on a little later tomorrow at 11 a.m. We have an amazing guest and we can't wait to interview her. So with that, we will definitely see you tomorrow. Enjoy your Triumph Tuesday. And remember, I have to come up with a new word salad.
yeah, you do.
I like that word.
You actually do. She's really good at that. She just goes into this like twist turned, and before you know it, it's a word salad.
What the heck did she say?
All
right, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks, Fran, for jumping on, and we'll see you two later on. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
That was